Welcome into Triple Zeros. I am your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Triple Zeros. And, of course, the website is jukesjumps.wordpress.com. And the email address is triplezeros@gmail.com. No E, though. Triple Zeros, no E. That's, of course, on Facebook, too. Triple Zeros, no E. Man, Super Bowl is just a couple of days away. And you know what? I was excited. And I'm kind of, at this point, I'm just ready for it to happen. Because I think we've all talked about it ad nauseum to a point where we could just get to the game already. There's also always that risk of the game not being that exciting. So that's part of, I think, the reason why I'm kind of, at this point, I think we talked about it so much that there's no way that it can live up to it. But there is the excitement of seeing a first-time head coach getting his shot in Kyle Shanahan, a long-time head coach getting another bite at the apple in Andy Reid, and the dynamics in how each of these teams operates, the ground game and defense for the San Francisco 49ers, and of course Patrick Mahomes and that explosive offense and all those weapons on the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a matchup that I think will come down to a lot of what we've seen recently, honestly, where these running teams that we've seen throughout the playoffs, we saw it with the Tennessee Titans, the Seahawks really too, even though they had Russell Wilson. But really with the Tennessee Titans, they were the epitome of it. A team that was living off of the ground game, and their quarterback was kind of a passenger. And what we've seen, I know I'm jumping right into the coverage here, but I kind of have to get to it. What we've seen is that when those teams, those ground teams, run into these kind of buzzsaw teams, is that it can it exposes them. See, the problem is that a lot of them have to jump out to that early lead, and when they do, they like to saw the game away with more of the rushing attack, which is fine. Except for you oftentimes get the appearances from the other team that, I take that back. What happens is when you jump out in front of the lead to the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not out of it. Their team is built to kind of come at you in a way that I don't think many teams are really ready for. They're not necessarily looking to They're not built to sustain. That's why we've seen, I think, a lot of times Andy Reid offenses and Andy Reid teams kind of fall by the wayside, is that they're not really built to salt the game away. When they get those leads, it's kind of alien and foreign to them to try to run the clock out. But I think what you do see is that there is a technical difficulties here. Be right back in a moment. Picking up where I left off, talking about Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that what you see is a lot of times they get out into those early leads and they have a problem holding on to them because they're not really built to attack a team with their ground game. They are built to attack through the air. And, of course, we all know that it's really a more effective strategy when you are trailing to try to throw. And, obviously, when you are trying to protect the lead, that can lead to stop clocks and ultimately the other team getting the ball back and having more chances. Now, a lot of times, the common strategy is to go for the ground and pound team to try to wear down on the other team, and they're going to just kind of run the clock out. But I think that we saw it already with the Titans and with the Ravens before that. The Chiefs do something to these other teams where they can't rest on their laurels that way, and those other quarterbacks, those, let's be honest, limited quarterbacks in terms of passing the ball, have to throw the ball more. And one thing that I will say, and I've been pretty consistent on this about Jimmy Garoppolo, even when I've had to admit that he was doing better than I thought, when you put the pressure on him, he is mistake prone. And I think that'll show up in this game. I think that's what ultimately what this comes down to. Quarterbacks by design almost, not even almost, but quarterbacks by design determine a lot. And as good as that San Francisco defense is, I think Patrick Mahomes is one who they might hold him down for a half, but I don't see them holding him down for an entire game. And there's just so many weapons. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. You still got Demarcus Robinson. You still got Damian Williams, who can run and catch the ball out of the backfield. On San Francisco's side, they have a lot of weapons. A lot of that is in the backfield with Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, and Tevin Coleman. But those receivers are pretty dangerous. Emmanuel Sanders and Deebo Samuel. Then you got the younger guys, the lesser-known guys, Kendrick Bourne. And, of course, George Kittle. Now, this is really going to be a matchup with the tight ends with George Kittle and Travis Kelce going back and forth. Basically, I think when it's all said and done, whoever's going to have the best game is everybody's going to run with the narrative of their being the best tight end. But those two should be stars. Now, we haven't seen much of Kittle because the Niners haven't had to run much, and Kelce was more of a blocker in the last game than he made an impact in the air. But this one could be one where the outsides are kind of locked up for both teams. Maybe more so for San Francisco, but they are I can see them forcing a lot to both of their star tight end players. Now, there's not a lot of numbers that you haven't heard, and you probably heard these ones too, but these are ones that I think stick out. As you know, I try not to get too bogged down with the numbers in games, especially with something like this, where there's been 2 weeks off. There's so much build up for it. I told you about the letdown that's always possible, but I just want to take a chance to run over a couple of these to explain where I think that there's going to be some issues for San Francisco. I've told you already. I think this is going to be the difference in this is going to be Patrick Mahomes and that offense against the San Francisco defense that'll likely be spread out too thin. First and foremost, you have Kansas City being 6th in the number of RPOs that they've ran this season versus the San Francisco zone defense. Now, the RPO offense, run pass option offense, is built to make zone defense unplayable. The number one lockdown guy in the shutdown corner for the San Francisco 49ers, Richard Sherman, we know he can cover man, but he is much more capable as a zone defender. So we're going to see a lot of Kansas City exposing and making the San Francisco defense decide and choose, and how often they can choose right is going to be an issue. Now, San Francisco does have the second highest pressure rate, but Kansas City has allowed the second fewest pressures. I'm not sure what's going to win this one because it's a strength versus strength type of thing. Now, part of the pressures that Kansas City has allowed is that Patrick Mahomes doesn't hold on to the ball too long. He can extend plays, but he also gets the ball out of his hands fairly quickly on a fair amount of his plays. So when you look at it, you kind of want to say, well, he's going to have to do something. It's going to be the magic of third down. And I know this is kind of cliche because every game really comes down to it. But San Francisco does increase their blitz percentage immensely, going from 18% in the first down, 27th in the league, 21% in the second down, that's 25th in the league, and then third down they were 34%, 14th in the league. So you got Kansas City, who's doing very good at not allowing pressure to get to Patrick Mahomes, but you have a 49er defense that can do so increasingly and does so with increasing frequency as the downs go on. But more importantly than that, they do it with 4 linemen. So they also have coverage on the back end. Now, this is going to be where the explosive nature of the Kansas City offense is going to have to win out. I told you about those RPOs. San Francisco is going to have to guess right. And I know that's duh, but they are going to, particularly because there's not going to be that ability to make up when you have Tyreek Hill running free for a fraction of a second because you guessed half a step wrong. Travis Kelce can move. And I told you about Demarcus Robinson and Damian Williams. They can catch as well and make some plays. And you still have Ricky Mecole Hardman. Didn't even mention his name before. So this is a lot for this San Francisco offense that relies on the run. Like I said, running is cool, except for when that passing game catches up to you real quick, and now you got to throw too. See, the problem is when they know you want to run, they can load up on you, and they can still make Jimmy Garoppolo have to beat them. The Shanahan running offense is legendary. and they'll probably get their fair share of yards. However, the type of pressure that this Kansas City offense puts on teams, I don't think is something that the 49ers are fully prepared for. Now, I said something similar when they played the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game. We know how that turned out, but I think a lot of that was because the Packers are such a condensed offense. They are Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, and Aaron Rodgers, and everything else kind of has to just fall in game by game. And that usually works, but that's in the regular season. In the playoffs, every team is good. Well, the Chiefs' offense is not condensed. It's very diverse, very multiple, and it's offset by a guy in Patrick Mahomes who is more of a magician gunslinger than Aaron Rodgers, at least at this point in his career. Maybe it's because of the spryness of his young legs or whatever it is. Patrick Mahomes is it, and I keep coming back to this, that I think that he's going to ultimately be the difference here. I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo in a situation such as this where I do believe he's going to have to throw. Why do I believe that? Well, coming in, including the playoffs, San Francisco is averaging 30.2 points per game. Kansas City is averaging 29.8. This is the first time both teams, including the playoffs, are averaging 29 points per game plus. That being said, it's different when you are setting the pace, as the 49ers are accustomed to doing, as opposed to having to keep up in the track meet that is what the Patrick Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs offense is. Once they get rolling, that's the I think the underlying thing here. When you talk about Mahomes, it's not just what he does, it's the fact that you can hold him down for a half, but he's going to figure out a way. And it might not even show up in the stat sheet, but he'll make enough plays and do enough with his legs and finding Kelsey, and then even the handoff, just I guess the threat of him pulling it back out and chucking it keeps him from committing all the way. But I think when you are put up head to head like that, if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, it's going to require you to be a lot more secure with the ball than we've seen when he's been put in that situation time and time again. Now, I'm not saying that he's incapable. I'm just saying I'm not sure that I have the faith that a lot of people seem to have, because there's a lot of talk of disrespect and not understanding how that could be possible because the 49ers defense is so bad. And it really is. It's a really, really tough defense. I don't want to take away from anything that they do, but I think that Kansas City is the quintessential modern day design of a team versus what San Francisco represents, which is the old school style smash mouth and play some defense. And let's not act like Kansas City's defense has just been trash. It's been good over the postseason. And this is the type of offense that will help them look good because, again, they can focus their efforts on trying to stop the run and then play the pass as a secondary thing. I just don't feel like that's a recipe for success for the 49ers when it's all said and done. Again, I picked against them the entire time, and here they are. But the same thing happened with Tennessee, so I'm going to stick to my guns here and just say that when it's all said and done, it'll be Kansas City 24, San Francisco 17. Something close. I'm not saying that that's going to necessarily be, I guess I am saying that. But maybe not the final score, but that'll be the margin. It'll be about a touchdown. I think the Kansas City right now is a +1, +1.5, something about that. Something like -1, -1.5. I apologize. Kansas City is the favorite still. But man, I just don't see Jimmy Garoppolo pulling it out against Patrick Mahomes. I just don't. Point blank, period. I know that you can throw out however many numbers about the pass rush and how much time to throw and how good the coverage for the San Francisco 49ers has been and how Andy Reid has not won a Super Bowl and all that, blah. I don't care. When you boil it down, it's going to come down, in my opinion, to Patrick Mahomes versus Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm taking Patrick Mahomes 11 times out of 10. Period. So that's my crack analysis for the Super Bowl. I think that you're going to see the ferociousness, that quick strikeability of the San Francisco front four, the Joey Bosa-led group, be a little bit offset by the misdirection and the sleight of hand and everything that is thrown at them, the speed overall of the Kansas City offense. I think this is what Kansas City is built to do. They finally found it. I think they finally get their ring for the first time in 50 some odd years. So that would be great to see for them. Great for Andy Reid. Great for Patrick Mahomes. Not so great for the San Francisco 49ers, although you can't take away the appearance in the Super Bowl. It's also the second year in a row the NFC West has made an appearance in the Super Bowl. I think NFC North needs to change that, and by that I do mean the Chicago Bears, but we'll talk about them in a second. One other quick nugget that came out during Super Bowl week. The host city, Miami Dolphins, said they're switching to aluminum cups from paper. Now, I just had to talk about this because, they're trying to do this to get rid of waste, and I completely understand that part. However, do you really think that giving drunk fans something that could be fashioned into some form of a weapon is a really smart idea in a confined space on a team that's really bad? Now it's Miami, so they might not get rowdy like that down there, but it's coming, right? It's Florida. You know how that goes. It's coming. That is got disaster written all over it. Now, as I said, the Bears, a couple of thoughts on their offseason. We've already been well covered. Their coaching changes have already been well covered. There was a bump in Tariq Cohen's his pay because of his playing time. Allen Robinson is discussing an extension with the team. Hopefully he gets that signed because he was a stud for us, for the Chicago Bears this season. Now, one thing that is being brought back into the forefront is their connection to multiple free agent quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota have all been linked in one way or another to the Bears. But recently, you've seen more of the Cam Newton connection. Benjamin Albright mentioned it earlier. You saw it retweeted by a couple of the local Chicago bloggers. And here's the thing. My ideal fit for the Chicago Bears, if they are to address it externally, the position externally with a free agent, is Teddy Bridgewater. I think that, honestly, in any situation, their best bet would be to throw whatever money it took to get Teddy Bridgewater to be their quarterback for the 2020 season. Anything short of that, I think you're taking a very big risk, and that's coming from a person who's a very big fan of Cam Newton. I think that if he's healthy and right, you have a chance for a Super Bowl even. But I think that things have to be right, and there's a lot wrong still with this team. There are some offensive line issues, and we've seen what Cam being abused down in Carolina. Now, I would imagine that Matt Nagy wouldn't run Cam Newton nearly as much as he was run down in Carolina, especially coming off those injuries. But you can't overlook the wear and tear and what it's had, and then the effect that the offensive line has had on Mitch behind it. He's been hurt 3 times, a hip and 2 shoulders. So that's one that I'm not sure I'm necessarily want to go for. Now, you probably say, wait a minute, why would you want to go to Teddy Bridgewater? Why would you want to go spend money on any quarterback if you're not going to protect him? I think a more traditional quarterback allows the offensive line to sort of protect better because you know where they're going to be. You hear that from offensive linemen a lot. Now, it's usually because they've been getting beat. However, there is some logic to it. There's a lot of logic to it. Knowing where the quarterback's going to be is something that I think would help them. Now, you've also got the situation in Jacksonville to monitor for the Bears. Will Gardner Minshew maintain the starting job? That seems to be the cry for fans. We'll see what they do. It is the Jaguars. So good luck trying to figure out where it's going to ultimately wind up. But Nick Foles could become available. The only way I think Nick Foles makes sense for the Bears is if they get the Jaguars to take on a lot of that salary. He just signed an $88 million contract, I believe, last year, 4 years, something like that, 3 years, something like that, for $88 million. That's too much. You can't pay Nick Foles that. And with Cam, he's on the last year of his deal. I'd have to see him. And obviously that's what they would do. They want to check out his medicals anyway, but I think that if you're going to go any one of those routes, you kind of have to throw the money at Teddy. That's where I wind up. Cam, I like the idea of possibly getting Nick Foles. I'm not really big on Brady. I think Brady needs an offensive line that the Bears don't have right now. I think that Phillip Rivers is Mitch with an attitude, not a bad attitude. Just I'm saying, a little smack talk going on, and Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota, Alex Smith, just no. The Andy Dalton stuff, look, man, I know they hired the coaches, and that's logical in that sense. But in terms of trying to improve the team, I just don't see it. I've seen the comparisons to bringing in Mariota, and he could do like Ryan Tannehill did to him, and I don't see that there either. I don't think that he has the type of qualities other than being an accurate quarterback when healthy, which is a big one, but he's never healthy. He's not a leader, and you are going to wind up having a college situation where you're splitting between him and Mitch depending on what the situation is. It's just going to be ugly. I think that if they're going to address it externally, you go all in on Teddy Bridgewater. Nick Foles, if you can get the Jaguars to pick up the tab, or Cam Newton, are solid fallbacks, but I don't think I go anywhere beyond that. And again, that's including the Brady and the Rivers because of specific needs for them that I think the Bears wouldn't have. And I don't necessarily know if they fit the offense, and we know Matt Nagy's not changing his offense to fit anybody. So, that being said, it's an early busy offseason, but it's not necessarily been busy in terms of making anything actually productive happen with the team. We're kind of still sitting and waiting, trying to find out where everything's going to go. I just wrote for Last Word on Pro Football about how the pass rush is going to be under a lot of pressure going forward. They were really good in terms of getting pressure. They were, I think, 6th in pressures, but they were 24th in sacks. That's not great. That's the problem that, and you hear a lot of times now that sacks are overrated. And I agree to an extent, but I think we say it so much that now that it's almost to the point where they've become undervalued. See, the thing is, getting pressure does hurry the quarterback. It does force the ball to come out quicker than they like. It does throw off the timing. But a sack is literally taking yards off the board. It's pushing the offense back. It halts so much momentum to get a sack rather than just hurrying, getting it in completion. In crunch time, the clock keeps running. There's so many benefits to it that, again, I don't necessarily think that it's the end-all, be-all of determining how effective a pass rush is, but I do think that we are approaching a point where we are letting the analytics dictate to us more than what our instincts already know. A sack is basically a drive killer. I don't know the numbers. I'm not going to throw out any type of 9 out of 10, 7 out of 8, anything like that. But a sack does so much damage to an offense's drive that it is imperative that they get more. And this is, of course, after they had about 50 last year. They were so much better in 2018 than 2019, and it was just in finishing plays. Like I said, they were really good in getting pressure, but they just weren't good at getting home. And a lot of that is due to not having the complementary pieces along that front. You start off with Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack, and that was good. It was a really, really good front then. You were kind of missing that third wheel. Leonard Floyd is an all-around guy, and I wrote in there how the brass loves him. But I think that they're making a mistake committing the $13+ million for a guy who's an all-around guy when they need that other sack getter, that other pressure generator. Because we saw when Akeem Hicks went down and teams were able to focus on Leonard Floyd or on Khalil Mack, there wasn't anything else going on the other side. You had 6 sacks from Nick Williams, but like Floyd, I know I'm picking on him a lot, but man, his sack totals have gone down each year from 7 his rookie year, I believe it was, to 3, and a lot of those have come against the Packers. It's just not a good look. And then for them to get up there and tell people to their face, well, he does so many things. We know what he's there for. He can do so many things, but he's there to get after the quarterback, and he just doesn't do it consistently. So on the interior, behind, they have depth. The middle of the Bears defense is very sound depth-wise in terms of tackle and linebacker. You saw Nick Williams appear out of nowhere. You had Roy Robinson-Harris fill in admirably when Akeem Hicks went down. Bilal Nichols missed some time, but even he had some games. He started to get his form back towards the end of the year. They could use some more depth, I guess, but they just really need more health. You lost Danny Trevathan. You lost Roquan for some time. Nick Witkowski played well. Kevin Pierre-Louis won me over. Iggy won me over. But that outside, that other pass rusher, they've got to figure something out. I don't think you can run into another season with Floyd because even with Akeem Hicks back, you still need another pass rusher. Now, chances are they try to find that person through the draft, but I did suggest in that article that maybe they go out and look at a guy like a Carl Nassib from Tampa Bay. Now, there's a good chance that he's back in Tampa, but they do have to pay Shaq Barrett. We'll see what they do with Jason Pierre-Paul, but if those two are getting the money, there could be a chance where Carl Nassib comes here. He's a bigger defensive end, I think 6'5", 270 around there. He could play the strong side, play the run, get Khalil Mack off those plays, and it could be a situation like Barrett's where he goes to another team and where he's been used rotationally this year with Tampa, and Barrett was so with the Broncos. He could come here, and Nassib could, to Chicago and carve out a nice role. He could battle for the position and likely win it out because he gave you 6 sacks, gave the Bucs 6 sacks in a rotational role. So I just think that there's a lot of opportunity out there for Leonard Floyd to make plays that he doesn't. Again, The Brad sees it one way. I think a lot of fans see it the other way. A lot of people following this team see it the other way. We'll see if they address it and how they address it in the coming weeks and months prior to and after the draft, really. Gonna take a quick break and then talk about some NBA stuff. Obviously, a big story that happened this past week. I did not go live right afterwards, but we'll talk about that coming up in a moment. Triple Zeros, right back. Back on Triple Zeros, and we're switching gears to the NBA. Again, follow me on Twitter at Josh G Buck. Hit up the Facebook page, Triple Zeros, no E's. Hit up the website, jukesandjumps.wordpress.com, and the email address is triplezeros@gmail.com, no E's. NBA action. First and foremost, I want to start off by saying rest in peace, Kobe Bryant and Gianna Bryant tragically passed in the helicopter crash on Sunday. Very, very rough day, emotional day for the sports world. The tributes have been pouring in. They were discussing changing the NBA logo. There are suggestions from a lot of people on social media. Listen, I've encountered a lot of people who've pushed back on this and said that they don't understand it and they don't get it and they don't think that it should change because a lot of people don't know. I think that personally, my opinion is that the basketball world if the basketball world wants it, then so be it. The people that I talked to weren't necessarily what I would consider in the basketball world. That's not a knock against them. That's just saying that this is probably not for them anyway. This would be for people who are in the basketball world. This is what they do. This is their life. This is their livelihood. So I don't really have an issue with it. The rumors are that the current logo, Jerry West, is no longer wants to be the logo. So I mean, if you're looking for somebody to put on there, I wouldn't be against it. I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I definitely don't have an issue with it, and I actually think it would be a good idea if they were to do it because I totally see why and where they're coming from and the purpose of it. Secondly, you have a lot of players saying that they're going to change their jersey numbers to retire 8 and 24 across the league. You've had a couple say no. Most notably, but locally concerning Zach LaVine and Lowry Markkanen. Zach is 8, Lowry is 24. Both have said they will keep their numbers in order to commemorate Kobe. Now, I guess you consider waffling on this, but it's not really that. It's really kind of just going with what I said. Now, if this was an entire league-wide movement and every player was pretty much on board and it was just them, because I think I heard that Ford Alize Johnson from the Pacers was also on this board of not wanting to change his number because of Kobe. I think that if they were holding up everybody else and the actual plan to retire the numbers league-wide from going forward, I think that would be selfish and that would be bad. If it's a few players who have really just gone about this, I know Spencer Dinwiddie's changed to number 25, I believe it is, 26, something like that. If it's just a few players, then everybody can go ahead and do what they want to do. I don't like this is just my personal, so it doesn't shake how they feel about it. But it just sounds weird when they say, "Well, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to honor him this way," as opposed to the way that were the suggested way of honoring. I just found that a bit odd, only because it seemed like a selfish take on it. But again, maybe the response would be different if the actual groundswell to do it was a lot bigger. So from the outside looking in, that would be cool. I've heard plenty of pushback on that as well. I don't really care. I think that it'd be cool. I think that again, this is another one of the things that I'm not going to necessarily go out advocating for. But if it was the players, if it was the majority of players were down for it, and there was a couple of guys holding up, I do think it would be foul for those few guys to hold up the mass movement. And in a similar story to the Dolphins one, there was a news anchor, and I won't mention her name, but in describing the tragedy, she decided to let it slip out a word that was interpreted by many to be a derogatory term, a slur, and her explanation left at least me reminiscent to a simpler time just a few short weeks ago. So She's saying she combined the terms the Knicks and the Lakers, and it came out Nakers. I'm gonna let you go ahead and use your imagination to figure out what everybody is saying she said. Listen, not here to make a judgment on it. What I will tell you is that my mind immediately went back to Beeline. She's got to be some kind of kin to John Beeline, the Cavs coach, because if you recall, John Beeline was recently in hot water for telling his players that they were out there playing like they're thugs. So I Freudian slip that, you can say what you want to say, but that's what you said. The Nakers one is kind of like the Yandy thing and the blue or the white dress, blue gold dress. If you want to hear it, you hear it, I guess. That's what some people are saying. I'm not sure that I completely agree. I just know that, woo. As soon as I heard that, boy, my mind immediately went to John Beeline, and I know John Beeline was like, "Yes, thank you, It's not just me. Somebody else is out here messing up their words too." Quick go around the NBA. Karl-Anthony Towns called out the Minnesota Timberwolves in very Jimmy Butler-like fashion, saying that the guys need to get on board. It's interesting that he's doing so because they are just floundering and really seem like they don't know what they're trying to build out there, but they're getting a really good season from Andrew Wiggins, and that's an interesting take on it. That's an interesting little tidbit. Wiggins is having great success, but the team is not really doing much, so we like to parse out whose stats matter and whose don't. You have to wonder if this Wiggins improvement is really what it seems to be honest. I haven't watched too many Timberwolves games, but I do know that seeing him call out his teammates, not as rough as Jimmy did, obviously, but still calling them out and saying that they need to be focused more and more all in. I mean, Cat won't be there long. I know that they've been trying to get him help, but we know how hard it is for Minnesota to attract free agents. Damn near impossible. They have to trade a lot to get those kind of guys unless they find them in the draft. And I see Cat going away before I see anybody coming there willingly. Again, trade is always possible, but I just don't know. And then I'm not sure necessarily what you do. What do they bring in? I know they were looking at sniffing around point guards, but this seems like a team that might just kind of have to prepare themselves to blow it up again. You might need to move Cat for all you can get and build around Jarrett Culver. I mean, if it's like this, I just don't see how you're going to improve. Teams like Minnesota have to kind of get a core and build that core up around the set so they can all mature at the same time. Because if you get in part by part by part, you're going to lose somebody in that shuffle over time because they just have a hard time retaining players. That's just the way it is. That's the way a lot of teams are. In the Bulls division, you have the Pacers. You saw what happened with Paul George. This is how it goes, and I don't want to say small market, but smaller market teams. If they don't win, they don't get those players back to back in draft, they have a hard time sustaining any type of winning ways because they just don't have the pedigree. They don't have the talent level to maintain it. And of course, I couldn't let anything keep going if I didn't mention it. But Zion Williamson did have an historic start to his NBA career. They are talking about this young man and how he, as I pull up the numbers here, everything takes forever when you're trying to explain your point to anybody. But they're talking about Zion had 72 points, 33 rebounds, and 63% field goal percentage in his first 4 games in the NBA. He's the third player in the lottery era since 1985 with 70 points, 30 rebounds, and 50% field goal percentage in his first 4 games, joining Shaq and David the Admiral Robinson. Zion's a beast, dude. I've been pleasantly surprised by a lot of these rookies who I was considering to be limited in ways that they weren't talking about enough and coming out of college and blah, blah, blah. I became a talking head, and shame on me for doing so because I just wasn't believing what my eyes were telling me. Zion's the truth. The kid can play. It's wonderful to see because the city of New Orleans needed it after everything they've been dealt with, how ownership has handled a lot of stuff and how players have handled a lot of stuff and just how things have gone for them. Good to see them have another one on their hands who looks like he can be a special player. Chris Middleton had 50 points the other night. Thought you wanted to know on 70% shooting. Thought you wanted to know. He made the All-Star team. People are complaining. He missed 20 games, so I get it. But I think if he's not a superstar, he definitely is an all-star. And we'll talk about more of the all-star snubs and everything in a minute, but there's 2 in particular that I think stand out among the rest of them. 3 really, but Another news, the Portland Trailblazers and Damian Lillard seem to be on fire, 3-1 in their last 4 games. Dame notched his first career triple-double against Russ. If you don't know, they've had a lot of back and forth, and Russ was talking the entire game, telling Dame, what's y'all ranking, what seed are y'all, and this, that, and the third. Meanwhile, Dame is pulling up logo trips and just eyeballing Russ the whole time, and this is his first career triple-double. And to get it against Russ, I know that had to be special because they were close at one point, and just, it seems like, iron sharpening iron to Russ. You know what he says? He has no friends on the court with the ball, so it seems like he goes at the people that he was friends with the hardest. But it was a lot of ticky-tack stuff in this game, and I got to be honest, man, the Rockets have let me down this year. As much as I've been trying to pump them up and talk about how Harden's been great and stop hating because Jimmy likes him, and, if you follow this, Russ is my boy, but damn it, man. Houston makes it hard to have any type of faith in them because they just let you down routinely whenever they're faced with any type of real competition. Even when they're not, a lot of times you see them struggle. It's just, it's a one-trick pony for 2 guys, and I'm not sure that they're going to ever be anything better than an also-ran, especially when you have those 2 guys who seem to kind of do more damage to the cause of winning than actual winning when it all is said and done, and then Mike D'Antoni, who's pretty much them as a coach. This is the triumvirate of heading into the brick wall. The definition of insanity is these 3 guys doing the same things and trying to get a different result. It's just wild to see. I'm just disappointed. Let down. I feel let down by the Rockets, man. I thought they'd be a lot better than they are. They've been good. They've still been good, but I think that they've shown some clear flaws against some of the better teams in the West. That's an issue. Luka Doncic, I told you, every time there's Luka news, I will make a note of it because I have got to make amends for my Luka slander. Luka injured his ankle. He will have MRI to determine the severity of it, but keep an eye on that because we've already seen that, injuries take guys out. Marvin Bagley's out again for, I think they said, another 3 weeks. That's rough. The Kings, man, if you felt bad as a Bulls fan that the Bulls didn't trade to go get Luka, feel bad as a Kings fan that they let Luka go right past them. They could have gotten him and didn't. Let that settle in for you. Knicks Pacers had a nasty little kerfuffle. One of my favorite words to describe sports fights that ain't gonna never go nowhere. Kerfuffle. Elfrid Payton pushed Jay Crowder, who stole the ball with 18 seconds. They were up double digits, and he took it, ran to the corner, and shot a 3. Elfrid Payton pushed him. Elfrid Payton said, "Nah, son." He wasn't going for it, and I think that, I can't blame Payton for being mad, but I think pushing Crowder in the air is something that you don't need to do. Wait till he comes down. Look, if he just let him land and then pushed him, I wouldn't even have cared. Yes, he's flying into people, but pushing him in the air, he can injure himself and those people because that's a big dude, 6'6", falling on some people. That's not good. And then in the post game, you had Marcus Morris talking about Jay Crowder has some female tendencies to him, and that he's soft, and that went about as well as you would imagine it went on the Twitter after that. I don't think that Marcus was trying to insult anybody, but that didn't matter. So, he was trying to insult Jay Crowder, but Crowder was probably the least insulted by that, and the one who took the least time to even address it going into the next day. I do want to go back and talk about that a little bit more about Dame's numbers over the past 4 games. 61 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists on 11 threes, 47.6 rebounds, 8 assists on 8 threes, 50.6 rebounds, 13 assists on 8 threes, 36 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists on 6 threes. He is averaging 48.5, 8 rebounds, 9.7 assists, and 8.2 threes per game in his last 4, while the Blazers are 3-1. Had to address that, had it pulled up, was not going to let it go without mentioning it. I think that warrants it. Now, talking about some other quick NBA action tonight, another team that's disappointed me, Philadelphia, because every time I cheer for them and try to stand and tell everybody how great they're really going to be, and if they're going to be my team, they're my team coming out of the East, buddy. Let me tell you, they go and do something like lose 127-117 to the Atlanta Hawks. It's rough, man. Try to have a little faith, and then they go on and lay eggs like that. Listen, I'm not gonna beat on them too much, but that was bad. Maybe not as bad as the Clippers losing to those Kings I was telling you about, 124-103. That might be the worst one of the night, to be honest with you. But Clippers not really worried about regular season, man. People keep trying to talk about how they're not ready and they're going to falter or they need to get this and they need to get that. I am a staunch believer that the Clippers are just trying to make it through regular season. Just make it to the play. They wouldn't care if they were the 8th seed. Just make it. Also notice that talk of locker room stuff is kind of quieted. I won't say it's gone away, but it's definitely quieter than it was a couple of weeks ago. Just saying. Things get said in the heat in the moment. People get sat down after those things are said, and the truth comes out, and it gets handled, and usually goes just like this. Star players get their way on teams. I'm not sure who said it. I have my guesses, my thoughts on it, but they apparently hadn't been around star players ever, because that's how it goes. And those two players are going to bring you a championship if they can stay healthy. Now, I personally am sticking with my pick of the Lakers coming out of the West and ultimately getting that trophy, especially with some extra motivation for them this year. But Clippers are a very, very tough team for the Lakers to get out. And if they were to win, I wouldn't be surprised. Let me put it that way. That's the best way I think I could put that one. I'm picking the Lakers, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers were the team to make it. NBA All-Star came. The votes, starters were announced a couple of days ago. You got Giannis and LeBron, obviously. We know how that goes. The starters, all 10 starters, I'm not dividing them or anything like that. I'm just telling you who the two captains are, LeBron and Giannis. And you got Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Kemba Walker, Luka Doncic, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, Trae Young. First-timers in Luka and Pascal, Trae, and Kemba. But more important than that, you have some clear snubs when you start looking at the reserves compared to the starters, compared to who didn't make it. So, on the reserves, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, both of the Miami Heat. You have forward Chris Middleton from the Milwaukee Bucks, Domantas Sabonis, forward center from the Indiana Pacers, and Jason Tatum. Then you also have Kyle Lowry, Ben Simmons, Nikola Jokic, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Brandon Ingram, Chris Paul, and Russell Westbrook. Now listen, Chris Paul is leading a team in the Thunder that is fighting for the playoffs when they were supposed to be floundering and he was supposed to be making his way to South Beach. So I commend him for that. I'm still not sure that he should be making it at 17 points per game over Devin Booker, who's averaging 27 points per game. I think he's the first one to do it since like LeBron or something like that. I got to pull that one up. But Devin Booker probably should have gotten the nod. I know that it seems like they're focusing more on winning. However, when you look at Trigger Trey over in the East and his Hawks, who are cellar dwellers, he made it, and you get him snubbed over a guy like Bradley Beal, who's averaging 25 plus points a game. So I'm not sure where they were going with this. It seems like it was a lot of a popularity contest, and that's cool and all, but it's supposed to be the best players, and I don't think a lot of people are sufficiently satisfied that that's the case. Before Devin Booker, no player had ever averaged 27 points per game and 6 assists on 60% true shooting and missed the All-Star game. So we're seeing a lot of first times. Now also, more local again, Zach LaVine was considered to be a snub. I'm not sure that I consider him a snub. I think a lot of it is the incomplete nature of his game. I saw a comparison to how they were doing Damian Lillard, and I agree to an extent that Dame was knocked for that lack of completeness to his game. Well, Zach, you don't really see the playmaking. You see a lot of now he did have 9 assists the other night, 9+ assists the other night. I think he might have reached double digits on that one. I gotta check. But 25 points per game. He's averaging more points per game than Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, Ben Simmons, Chris Middleton, Jason Tatum, and Adebayo and Sabonis. Now, this is a post from Bulls Talk on Twitter, those aren't everything, but they're leaving an elite scorer out of the All-Star game. I wholeheartedly agree. You kind of have to, again, you want to say that it's because of the winning. And Sabonis, people want to take Sabonis off, but he's averaging like 18 and 12. He's the second leading scorer on that team and giving them 12+ boards a game. And they're fifth in the East. Like they're doing really well. Now Adebayo, you got Adebayo and Jimmy. Adebayo first year starter. I know people like him. That one might be a bit of a stretch. I have a hard time rooting for anybody who is on a team that's struggling as badly as the Bulls are, and who and with LaVine has put up a lot of empty buckets this year because he's done a lot of shot hunting, a lot of bucket hunting, where he's put up some shots that maybe that weren't great. But man, I just don't think that you put Chris Middleton in over him at 20 points per game, even though his team is doing great. He still missed 2 months of the game, and he has that's right, the MVP on his team. I don't know how. It's in Chicago. It's in Chicago, and he didn't make it as a reserve. That's criminal. And it's almost a shot at the Chicago Bulls and telling you that your organization doesn't deserve to even be recognized in your home city at the All-Star game. Maybe Zach joins the dunk contest. Aaron Gordon is confirmed, but man, it's Rudy Gobert cried last year for it. You can talk about me if you want to, but he complained that he wasn't getting recognized. Brandon Ingram got traded to another team for a superstar and is averaging 25 points per game. He earned his stuff. I'm not saying Rudy Gobert doesn't deserve to be there, but let's not act like he's a 2-time defensive player of the year. Let's not act like he didn't go out there and make some noise about why he didn't make it. Now, Kyle Lowry, All-Star, is a funny one, not because of him, but because he is a master of the little things and not really an exciting player to watch. He's a player that a lot of people will say is kind of boring to watch because he's really good at doing the little things and not really a flashy type guy. I could see that one not making it too. It's weird. It's a weird group that they picked. The one that throws everything off, though, I think, is Trae Young, because you can't say it's about winning when you have him on there. I know that he's an exciting player for people to watch, but there's no way that you can justify snubbing Zach LaVine. Now, Trae's averaging almost 30 points per game. Let me not 30 not 29.2 and 9 assists. So let me not say he's not putting up the stats, but he's putting up stats on a bad team. If the argument against Zach is that his stats are hollow, Trae Young is what Will Smith's meme is pointing at when he's presenting. I don't know how you can argue against that. So that's where I fall. And then Chris Middleton again. 20 points, 3 assists, 5 boards, but you missed 2 months and you have Giannis on your team. Devin Booker, 27 plus. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's going on. Bradley Beal should have been over Trae Young. I like Trae Young. That's the worst part. It's hard because you arguing this stuff, and I know there's only so many spots you can get, but it seems like they tried to force in the first-year guys to try to spice things up. We didn't talk about that in a second. So they're trying to force in some first-year guys. That was kind of part of the announcement. You got first-year guys in Trae and Pascal Siakam. I think they went a little bit overboard, though, in trying to make sure that happened. Luka's first year, but he was going to make it. Luka was going to get there, okay? Let me not act like Luka wasn't going to make it. Luka was going to make it. Trae, though, look, 29. That's all I can say. But you knocked off Beal, you knocked off Zach, and Devin Booker. Devin Booker might have the worst because he's got the scoring, like I gave you those stats, and then they're losing. But Trae is kind of just the theory buster. He's just a theory buster. Then there was word that the All-Star game will be making some changes to the format. There will be 4 quarters, obviously still, but at the end of each quarter, the score will be reset to 0, and at the 4th quarter, the totals will be aggregated, and the team with the higher total, they will have to. Okay, so see how confusing this is already. After each quarter, the scores will be reset to 0, so you can win each quarter. When the 4th quarter comes around, the totals will be added up, and whatever the higher total is, you'll have to add 24 to that, and that'll be the target point total for the game to end. So, if Team A has 100, 124 is the target total. Or 100, and then the other team has 90 points. That means that they have to get 24 points to win. The other team needs to get 34 points to win. It's supposed to make it more competitive. I'm not sure how, because if you have a lead going to the 4th quarter and it's double digits, I feel like the other team is just going to give up anyway because it's the All-Star game. There was talks of adding the tournament similar to the basketball tournament that goes on every summer. They're just trying to fish out anything right now, but they're really risking this going the way of the Pro Bowl, especially when you have the selection that you have. I'm not sure how well this is going to go. You don't have the host city represented in the game. You're trying to get them to go to the dunk contest. That's kind of like a smack. Hey, you can come around here. you are going to be in the wintertime. It's going to be cold. It's going to be cold. So, deal with that. And then you got this Aki format that people are saying is going to be exciting, but I feel like it's overdone. Listen, if you're going to reset every quarter, reset the fourth quarter too, and then just whoever gets to 24 first. Make it go to 24 every quarter. I feel like this is just going overboard. One step too far. I feel like it was on the right path, one step too far. That's all. That's it. That's all. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. Interested to see it. I'll probably check it out for at least a little bit, but this seems like a bit much. And then wrap it up with a little bit of Bulls talk, because there will be a Bulls article coming out on Pimpin' Ain't Easy about the Bulls and a couple of wing players. Just a quick little taste about what that's going to be. Borland's rotations are ridiculous still. They had Chandler Hutchins go for a career high 21 points on 71% shooting, but Boylan pulled them to go to a rotation of non-scorers and kind of blew the game down the stretch for the Bulls. Now, Hutchinson did allow the game-tying three-pointer from Victor Oladipo, who made his return to send the game into overtime. But pulling him, that's counterproductive to a team like this, especially. A team that's not great, you kind of should let guys play through some mistakes. Some mistakes. Not egregious ones, but some mistakes. And to his credit, Hutchinson acknowledged that he should have had his feet down on defense. This will be part of the article that comes out tomorrow. But the other wing that you got to keep an eye on is Denzel Valentine. And you just wonder, with the skill set that he has as a playmaker and as an outside scorer, why doesn't he get more burn? And I say that as he just released his new video for his new single Introduction. And I still have to argue for it, though, because he can help the team on the court. It's funny. It's a great video. Go check it out on Instagram. Go check out his video. But I wonder if he would play a little bit smarter. Would that cure it all? We know he popped up in the video in the bar with Wendell. So maybe it's some decision making outside of the court, outside of the basketball, that is keeping him off. But if he was to maybe shoot less and be more of a playmaker, be more of a point forward, he would be on the floor a lot more, because I think that Sado probably is a better pure passer, but the threat of Denzel scoring would be so much more valuable down the stretch when the Bulls often look disjointed because Sado won't shoot. He's just not looking to shoot often enough. Now, that's just not his game. That's not a knock on him. And when he does get going, he can have some really good games. But Denzel with Kobe and Zach, when he gets back Lowry, when he gets back Wendell, that's a pretty nice combination if it was all work out. Look, both Valentine and Hutch are young players, and this is the point in time I think the Bulls should figure out what they had. Now, they've been trying to move Denzel, and Hutch dealt with injury, but with how their bank account's set up going into next year, and Otto's going to pick up that option, they might be better off trying to keep these guys and see if they can work out anything, see what they can get out of them going forward, see what their actual ceiling is. They've been given enough time to Lowry and see what he can do. I think that you should at least see what you can do with these young guys. Maybe if you're going to start piecing out anything, I think that you're going to have to get rid of some good players to get rid of some of those bad contracts first, because you're not even in a position as a bad team to take on bad contracts to attach the first-round picks because you don't have any money. And the cap is going to be lowered by about a million that they thought it would be for next year. Not a lot, but still, it's enough to where they don't have that extra help. So be on the lookout for that. Pippen ain't easy. The looking for the wins in these wings, man. Pippen ain't easy. The Chicago Bulls, I want them to be so much better, but it just seems like they're frustrating, and it seems like they do a lot of the damage themselves to themselves. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page, Triple Zeros No E's. Hit up the website, JuiceJumps.wordpress.com. And, of course, the email address is triplezeros@gmail.com. No E's. You know what to do. Until the very next time, horns.